Welcome to the Inspiring Marriages podcast. We are Jeff and Teresa Fields, and the music you just heard during our introduction was completely composed and recorded by our son, Joseph Taylor Fields.
We have been happily married for over 32 years. We have 3 wonderful grown children, a fantastic son-in-law, and a precious grandbaby.
As we share our story, our desire is to inspire couples to build their friendships and thus build their marriages in all areas, spiritually, emotionally, romantically, and physically.
If you go to our webpage, inspiringmarriages.net, there you can access all of our previous episodes, including all the show notes. And below the episodes, there is a Keep in Touch section where you can sign up to receive our latest offering for free. Mm-hmm. So, Teresa, last week we started talking about the gifts that God gave marriage, and last week we talked about the blessings. So if you haven't heard that podcast, go back and watch it on either on YouTube or go back and listen to it on your favorite podcast platform. This week we're going to talk about the second gift that God gave mankind and thus gave marriage.
That's right.
We're going to talk about dominion. And that's a word, I guess we don't use that word very much in our North American Western culture. But if you go back to Genesis 1, let's go back to Genesis 1:26. Then God said, "Let us make man in our image or according to our likeness. Let him have dominion over the fish of the sea, over the birds of the air, over the cattle, over all the earth, and over every creeping thing that creeps on the earth." Genesis 1:26 in the New King James Version. Mm-hmm. So God gave mankind dominion over fish of the sea, over the birds of the air.
That's right.
Over the cattle, over all the earth, and over every creeping things that creeps on the earth. And the Charles Capps says,
"We have authority over the creeps." That's what I was thinking. I had to remember that Charles Capps quote.
Right.
My favorite one.
So if we go through the Amplified Classic, they use the translators use the term complete authority.
That's good.
So dominion can also mean complete authority.
Wow, that's quite a gift that God gave Adam and Eve, isn't it?
Right.
Wow. In the Expanded Bible, it means rule. And I had an idea about rule today when I saw that in our notes. You know, if you're given the opportunity to rule, that means you're the one who makes decisions for the good of all of those under your authority.
Right.
So rule is an action. It's a verb. You rule if you're a ruler. So you make decisions. You're overseeing people, and you're supposed to be doing everything for their good.
Right. So apply this to your marriage. So just don't think about it as Adam and Eve in the Garden of Eden. Think about it. Let's now apply it to marriage.
Right.
So we're to rule over our household.
Right.
For the good.
For the good.
Right. That's very good.
That's really good.
The G&T says, have power over.
Right.
So dominion, complete authority, rule, have power over.
Right. So, you can see, and the next one, the ISV reminds me of this too, be masters over. I mean, who can train a horse better than a man? A man can find out about the instincts and the tendencies, the way horses learn, but they can become masters over animals and train them.
Right.
You don't see animals training people. That's just everything upside down. So we can be masters over what God created, all the rest of creation. But of course, not abuse that kind of authority, right? Right.
Now the message, I like this, how the message puts it. Be responsible for.
That's good.
So dominion, complete authority, rule, have power over, be masters over, be responsible for. So we also remember Adam was given the responsibility of protecting and watching and keeping the garden. So he was responsible for cultivating. So if you hired someone to watch your house while you're on vacation, and you came home and it was just depleted, like the carpet was gone, it was dirty, it was filthy,
trash,
garbage everywhere, you would feel like they didn't do a good job of being responsible for your house. It's the same thing with God. We're not to deplete the resources.
That's good.
We're not to pollute and just kill and just
be
irresponsible to this world, because we were given we're caretakers and responsible for this world, to take care of this world.
Right.
And so it's just not just to deplete it. I remember when Jamestown was founded, they depleted that island to take all the raw materials back to England.
It was all going
it
back
was
to
bare.
England.
They laid bare that island.
Right.
So they were not good. They were not responsible for it. They were more of rulers, and not in a good sense.
But not in a good sense, right. And of course they were doing what the king directed them to do.
Right.
Where they weren't entirely, getting to be in control of that situation.
So just apply that to your marriage. You are responsible for what goes on in your household.
Yes, absolutely.
And to have complete authority what's going on. So, your kids do not rule your house.
Exactly. They don't have the maturity to decide what's best for everyone involved.
Right.
Exactly.
The New Living Translation says reign over, and the Wycliffe Bible says be he sovereign. So it was a great responsibility that God gave mankind when he said, let us make man in our image according to our likeness.
Right.
So he gave him dominion, complete authority, rule, power, master, to be responsible for, to reign over, and to be sovereign.
That's so good. And when I saw the meaning to reign over, I was thinking that that's the connotation of a king or someone who's royal, in a position of royalty. And the Passion Translation uses the word reign also for dominion, to reign over. So it reminded me of Romans 5:17, the second half of the verse, that says that because we receive the grace of God and the righteousness through Jesus Christ, we're to reign as kings in this life.
Wow.
So there's the rule as a king and someone who has righteous authority given to us through Jesus by God. That is a serious and, a weighty responsibility, you could say, to think of it. If I'm reigning as a king and what I say goes, I need to be careful what I'm saying. Need to be careful with my attitudes. If I make an edict or proclaim something, it needs to be for the good of everybody involved, because we've been given a lot of authority.
Right. That's so good, Teresa. So even as we operate as one in marriage, we have different roles and different responsibility, but we're equal in God's side.
That's right.
The wife is not lesser than the husband. We just have different roles and different responsibilities. But we both have the charge to rule and reign, like you said, in a good way.
In a good way. Exactly. Yes.
Now, look at Webster 1828 dictionary for dominion. It is sovereign or supreme authority, the power of governing and controlling. As in Daniel 4:3, the dominion of the Most High is an everlasting dominion.
Wow.
It's the power to direct, control, use, and dispose of at pleasure, right of possession and use without being accountable as to private dominion of individuals. That's kind of how it applies to earthly kings.
Yes.
But still, we have a responsibility to take care of everything that's put under our rule. We have a responsibility to take care of our home. We have a responsibility to take care of our cars. We have a responsibility to things that God has given us to take care of them and keep them in good shape. And just don't leave your tools out in the yard or leave a lawnmower out in the rain. You take good care of things that God has entrusted you with.
That's right.
And take good, especially if you have children.
Especially
take care of those children. You are responsible. You'll be held responsible for how you take care of your children.
That's right. How you set an example, what kind of rules and guidelines you give them, and how you are actually guiding and shaping and molding their lives, because that is the responsibility. That is part of our dominion as parents. That's we'll get into this next. What is under our dominion? Where are the boundaries of this? Our children are definitely within our authority. They're not someone to turn over to someone else to say, well, we'll let the government raise them, or we'll let schools raise them, or we'll let neighbors raise them. Just let them run wild in the neighborhood, and the neighbors will make sure they get home at night. That's just neglect. I mean, people have been charged with neglect for not knowing where their children are and making sure they're being taken care of and their needs are met, and that they're, have a safe place to live. That's, very sad to see, but that does happen when some people don't realize they have responsibility with this authority. Yes.
Right. That's so good. Yeah, and there's another definition of dominion, another aspect of it is territory, like under a government or region or country or district, governed or within the limits of authority of a prince or state, like the British dominions. So our dominions, we have our dominion is kind of set. I don't have dominion to tell you what to do with your children or what you do with your house or this. I don't think you're doing right with your kids or unless it is neglect. But if one of our children would say, "Well, Billy's dad lets him do that," well, I'm not Billy's dad, right?
We've all heard that, right? If we're parents. Exactly. So that's not under our dominion, what other parents are doing with their kids. If they're friends of ours, we can, of course, a friend will warn another friend, hey, I see something that doesn't look right. This could be harmful to your kids, or down the road, you may not have the right results. And, if you're not dealing with, like Proverbs says, you train a child, you discipline a child, and you deal with correcting things early, because the longer they're allowed to do something, this is part of our authority, then they're going to be so ingrained in that it's going to be hard to change later. And the same thing in marriages. We don't want bad habits to just be something we're not taking authority over. And I'm not telling Jeff how to change his habits, and he's not telling me, but God is dealing with each of us, and we need to respond to his authority and then use our authority over our own lives to say, I can't just be lazy and undisciplined in my life and let bad habits rule my behavior and my attitudes and the way I talk to my spouse, just getting into, laziness, that's not okay in a marriage. And, no condemnation on anyone, because we all fall into that, just kind of sitting back and letting things go on as they are. But we always should be growing, always should be working on ourselves and taking dominion over things that are not really where they need to be. If it's not pleasing to God, or it's not the best that we can be in an area, let's keep working on it and use our authority and use the Word of God to keep growing and keep improving.
That's so good. Now, the different ways that Strong has used this Hebrew word to rule, have dominion, dominate, tread down.
Wow.
So is subjugate, to cause to dominate. So we saw the first verse, 126, how God said he was going to do this. Now he does this. Now we read this verse last week dealing with the blessing.
The blessing part.
Let's go on to the second gift, Genesis 1:28 in the Amplified Classic. Would you like to read that?
Of course, sure. It says, and God blessed them and said to them, be fruitful, multiply, and fill the earth, and subdue it, using all its vast resources in the service of God and man, and have dominion over the fish of the sea, the birds of the air, and over every living creature that moves upon the earth. Yes. Genesis 1:28.
I love it says, use its vast resources in the service of God.
Yes, that's so good.
I like the way that Amplified brought that out. Now, the other translations, that same phrase of subdue it and have dominion, the Amplified says subjugate it, putting it under your power and rule over, dominate.
Right. That's so good. And the CEV says, bring it under your control, rule over. That's so good.
The Message Bible says, take charge, be responsible for. I think that is so
good. You know,
be responsible for.
Right. Things are not going to fix themselves. You've got to take charge and start taking action when something is not right.
And we've all been there. Someone makes a stain on a carpet, and you kind of get used to it after a while.
Yes.
And you don't go to the bother
it was the dog's fault
of cleaning it, and you just kind of get used to it. And eventually, you don't see it anymore.
Right. You just start ignoring it. I mean, your brain just kind of tunes that out. Yeah, isn't that something? So
we need to be responsible for the things that God has given. That's a material thing, but God has given you responsibility to do things. You have a calling, and you've been anointed, and you have a calling. Your marriage has a calling.
Your marriage has a calling,
and you need to be responsible and use the resources that God has given you.
Exactly.
In the service of God. Well, maybe you're good with your hands. Maybe you have a compassionate heart.
Right.
Maybe you're very organized.
Right.
There's so many areas where you're hospitable.
Right.
You're a great cook. You know how to fix things.
Right.
There's just so many things.
Some people are good planners, and there are people who need help with that.
Right.
Exactly.
There's so many different types of gifts, and we can't go through them all today because there's so many. But you individually have a gift, and your marriage has a gift.
You
have an assignment. Your marriage has an assignment, and you need to use the resources that God has given you, subdue those resources, and use those resources.
That's so good.
Maybe you have a musical talent. Invest in your talent.
Right.
Train that voice.
That's right.
Learn how to play. Maybe you have an aptitude for playing or the guitar or piano. It's not just good enough just to play based on your own abilities.
Right.
Train in it. Invest in your talent. Become good in it. Good at it. So it's just not. Yeah, this is give your best.
This is what I do,
Give your best. Give your best, right?
That's so good. I love that. And like you said, between the two of us or in any marriage, your gifts combined together can be such a powerful instrument of blessing to other families, to other children, to your school, to your neighborhood, to your church. Just so many places, to volunteer organizations. I mean, a couple just going and helping in a food outreach or a soup kitchen, or just spending extra time with kids in an after-school program, anything like that. But you can find out, pray together, and ask God what it is that you've gifted us to do together that is a blessing to other people. And
talk to the pastors of your church.
Right.
They know where the needs are.
They know where the needs are.
In that church and in the community.
In the community.
And they can plug you in someplace to help.
It might be something like teaching swimming lessons, or being a coach on a little league team, or just so many myriad of possibilities. But,
Right.
it's going to be based on what God has gifted you to do. He doesn't expect you to do something that's just like, I'm a fish out of water doing this. This doesn't seem right. But he wants you to do things that he made you a blessing to be a blessing.
Right. That's so good. That last definition.
Yes, the voice, you call it the voice translation. Okay, it says, I make you trustees of my estate. This is the Father God talking. So good. So care for my creation and rule over it.
Right.
Wow. I really like that.
The trustees of an estate, they don't own the estate.
Right.
But they're held responsible for that estate.
Responsible.
Remember
like those parables that
the
Jesus
parables
taught.
of the talents, where he gave his stewards different amount of money, and one invested it, another invested it, and they were good and faithful stewards. And one just
third one,
he just hid it because he was afraid to lose it, and Jesus wasn't. Well, the parable, the master wasn't too happy with him.
No, he was not. He was angry.
Took what he had and gave it to the one who had the most.
Yeah. Right, because he was not being a good steward. He was not applying any effort to it, and he was just doing the easiest thing, just hiding it.
In a lot of these big estates or even farms, there's someone who oversees the estate or oversees the farm, and they run the farm as if it was theirs.
Right,
they care for it.
Do.
They take care of it, and they hire people, the right people. And someone they hire is detrimental to the estate. They get fired, right? Because they're trustees of the estate, and they want to do a good job and take care of something that's been entrusted to them.
That's right.
So, Teresa, we're going to move on.
Oh, okay. Are we going to?
We'll catch the New Testament version of Dominion next week.
Oh, that's good.
But you can listen to our podcast on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and Amazon. Please leave us a review. You can watch this podcast on YouTube. Search for the Inspiring Marriages channel. You can even listen to our podcast using your smart devices. Just say, Alexa, play the Inspiring Marriages podcast, or Siri, play the Inspiring Marriages podcast. As you can see, we're no longer in our dining room. Our air conditioner has been fixed. Praise the Lord.
Yes.
And actually, we have our lighting a little bit different this week. We're trying it out. A little different lighting behind us, and we have low light in front of us. Just trying to make a softer presentation of the video. And we'll look at it later to see how it turned out. And we had the microphone here between us, because the last couple of times we recorded with two microphones, in the middle of the recording, it became unusable. There was a buzz that just started, and we had to do it over and over again.
Over and over
again.
Yes.
So tell us how you like our lighting, and see if...
Yes, let us know what you think, how you like it, anything you'd rather see, or... we'd love to hear your comments. And of course, we always love to hear your comments on the episode, for sure.
Well, Teresa, we're going to just go back to a friendship builder this week. And the friendship builder for this week, this is our second set of friendship builders we're starting.
Yes,
we had a previous set of friendship builders, which you are welcome to have. This is a second set of friendship builders. Now, you can apply this any way you want, but we put down, go antique shopping or flea market. So it just go somewhere together, and you don't have to spend a lot of money.
No,
but you can have fun just looking around at different things together. And something might catch your eye, but you don't have to spend anything and have a good time. And so we went to a antique mall last Thursday, right? And we just wandered around and just looked at the different things in the store, and they had different booths and different people selling things. And Teresa found this really inexpensive necklace.
It was.
It's like $10.
It could have been a lot more than that.
And it's a beautiful necklace.
Yes.
And I found something from my alma mater, and college I went to, there was a hat, so I got that for Georgia Tech. Yay, go Jackets! And
Go Jackets.
we just spent time. So you might go to a flea market, or you might go to yard sales, or you might want to go to Goodwill, and just take your time, just looking. Just it's about spending the time together. It's not really about spending anything, because you can have a good time without spending a dime. And just walking through and looking at different things. And something might remind you of your childhood.
Yes,
you might see some old toys that you may have had, or that you had, or your children had, and you just may bring up some memories. So
yeah, it's fun. It is fun.
You have anything else about this marriage builder?
Yeah, to me, it's just refreshing to do something like that. Just like you said, it's fun. There's no pressure like it's a big expense or anything. I mean, it's just free to go into antique malls and walk around. Nobody's going to charge you anything. If you don't find anything you like, then you can just go out. But to me, it's like I usually see something that reminds me of my mom, or like you said, my childhood, or something like that, because they're going to be things from mid 1900s on all the way through to the present. And, what's somebody's trash might be a treasure to you. You might think, well, they didn't really fix this up or anything, but I remember that. That's something from my childhood. You might really want to have it as a keepsake or whatever. But yeah, I just enjoy that. It's refreshing to me. And Jeff knows that, but he doesn't, feel like he has to love everything I love there. He can find stuff that guys like too. So that's always nice.
I usually keep an eye out for teapots.
Yeah.
Teresa likes teapots.
Birdhouses and teapots.
Birdhouses. I see something I think is interesting. I'll bring her to it. And so,
yes, that's right. You do.
I do.
That's fun.
I do look out for things that she likes.
It's a nice little surprise, because I might have missed it. And he says, you got to come to this booth. It's fun. Yeah. So thank you for that, Jeff.
You're welcome, honey. You can connect with us on Facebook, Instagram, and YouTube. Please like, follow, and subscribe. You can also connect with us via email at inspiringmarriages@att.net. You can leave questions and suggestions on how to make this podcast better and what topics you would like us to explore. So I think next week we're going to talk more about dominion, but we're going to put it into a New Testament focus.
That's right. Yeah, that'll be fun.
So each of these gifts God gave can be books, and there have been books written about each of them.
Oh, yes.
So we're not going to hardly scratch the surface of the subject, but we want to apply it to our marriage. So until next time,
husband and wife are friends for life.